Al Tribble. He's a supervisor agent from the FBI here in Houston, and we would like to welcome and call him to the stage. I've only met him a couple of minutes ago, and it seems like he's my lost long brother. But, thank you, and we honor you, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm Al Tribble, and I am a supervisory special agent with the FBI, but I was a special agent investigator much longer than I was a supervisor. And just to give you a little background of what I've done, I've investigated civil rights for more than 15 years. And thank you. And prior to that, I was the media spokesperson for the Houston division. I'm a former FBI SWAT team sniper, hostage negotiator, and also investigated white-collar crime, bank fraud. I say that, I know what you're thinking. Well, you sure did a lot of former things. What's he good at? Well, I think I'm good at this civil rights issue. I work hand in glove with the Department of Justice, my colleague that just spoke. We're the investigative arm, they're the prosecutive arm. And for the last 15 years, we've really been focusing on hate crimes. And what I want to impart to you is that hate crimes, they truly are underreported. And when I say they're underreported, I have statistical data that backs that up. When I look at the number of hate crime investigations throughout the country that are currently being investigated by the FBI, and there's more than 200 hate crime investigations. But guess how many law enforcement officers report hate crimes? Over 14,000 law enforcement agencies. So that tells me that, you know what, something's wrong. A lot of agencies aren't reporting the number of hate crimes that are occurring. And something else occurs to me is that, you know what, if they're not reporting it, maybe the victims are not reporting it. And I know that for a fact. Here in the Houston division, there was a young man, well, he was a senior citizen that was assaulted. And he did not report the hate crime. We had to investigate and look for him. All we had was a picture and a cell phone. And the police went door to door asking if anyone knew who this man was. And when we finally identified him and asked, why didn't you tell us someone assaulted you? Merely because of who you are, the color of your skin. And he said, well, you know what, this is Houston, Texas, I've been here 80 years. You just don't do that. And you look the other way. And that was his mindset. A lot of religious institutions, when I grew up as a small boy, churches were sacred. They're still sacred. But you have individuals that would deface a synagogue. They would deface a mosque. They will burn down a religious institution. And it's seemingly more prevalent than it was when I was small. And they had no remorse. And I'm going to tell you something that my colleague said. He said it's difficult to prove a hate crime investigation. And one of the reasons it's difficult to prove it is because no one says, I did it because of their religion. I did it because of their color. They don't say that. And we as investigators have to find out what their true motivation is. We had a situation in Victoria that's presently pending. And the question is, with law enforcement, when we get a call, the first call is, hey, there's been a fire. And guess what the next thought is? Well, there's been a fire, it's an arson. Someone committed arson, or it's an electrical issue and there is no crime. The true test of an investigator is the patience and the diligence to look into that arson and determine whether or not it was intentional or accidental. And that is the challenge that we have. In talking about hate crimes, I want to kind of expound upon the definition, because I hear a lot of people say, my civil rights have been violated. I'm a victim of a hate crime. And I ask, well, what civil right are you talking about? Because when it's all said and done, in Houston, Texas, and around the world, and the country, we have far more hate incidents than we have hate crimes. And that's truly sad. If we have one hate crime, it's a terrible thing. But a hate crime can be prosecuted at the federal level. A hate incident can't be prosecuted. While it's a terrible thing, it cannot be prosecuted federally. And the difference is in the motivation behind what has transpired. I like to tell people, they say, well, what's a hate crime, Al, when the FBI comes out? And I say, well, I've heard people say it's a crime to, and I stop for a second, it's a crime. I've heard people say it's a crime to be that ugly. Now, they weren't talking to me when they said that, but I've heard people say that. Or they say it's a crime to wear those shoes or that outfit, that doesn't match. I've heard people say, well, what's a hate crime? A hate crime is a criminal offense. That's what it is. And it can be directed at a person, it can be directed at a religious institution. And when you talk about what that offense is, well, what was it? It was arson, it was murder, it was robbery. It was something tangible that the statute, at the end of the day, the law books tell us, well, that was bias motivated because of religion. And when we dig into the background of the investigators or the people that have committed this crime, we have to pull out all the stops. We have to ask to look at their computer. Can you imagine a building is burnt to the ground and the news is reporting, oh, there's been a fire. And first thing I say is, okay, it's been a fire, but what's behind that fire? And is it a biased motivation behind that fire? And then I talk to the leadership of whatever congregation it might be, and I ask questions like, well, do you sell religious materials within the institution? Do you have anything delivered from another state? And they're looking at me and they're wondering, why is he asking about deliveries? Why is he asking about where we get our religious books? Well, there's an interstate commerce clause that has to be satisfied when you're talking about religious motivation. And those things have to be investigated. On top of, okay, we have a suspect. Let's look at that suspect's telephone. Let's look at that suspect's associates who they hang around with. Let's look at their computers, because inevitably they will have some sort of communication on their computer that's bias motivated, or they've gone to some sort of site, because in the end of the day, they're not going to say, I did it because of. The best part of my job is coming out and being with you. We're an investigator. At the end of the day, when you say, well, Al, what do you do? I put people in jail. And that's the bottom line, is to investigate federal criminal violations and put those people that are responsible in jail. It's not a great thing, but it's needed. The best thing is outreach. And how do we educate the public about reporting? It is so critical that hate crimes be reported to law enforcement. And it doesn't matter whether it's the local law enforcement or the FBI. Did you all know you can pick up the phone and call the FBI anytime you want? Anytime. Okay, there's going to be somebody there to talk to you, one way or the other. We get people that call and say, there's a spaceship outside. So you can certainly call and say, you know what, I'm a victim, or I think I'm a victim, and someone needs to look into this. And we're going to let you know whether we can or we can't, and the reasons behind it. We have an awful lot of resources, 56 major field offices throughout the United States, and over 300 satellite resident agency offices that investigate hate crimes. Now, I know that's a small number. It's like only 56 field offices. And guess what? We only have probably about 13,900 special agents. But at any given moment, if there is a hate crime, it is the #1 priority of the Criminal Intelligence Division of the FBI, is to investigate civil rights violations because of the impact they have against individuals, communities, and society as a whole. So I would urge you, going forward, if you have an inkling that someone has been wrong and there's a biased motivation behind it, know that Al Tribble was here today and said you can pick up the phone and call the FBI. Thank you very much.